Isaac Newton has just discovered a magical piece of plastic. It lets him enter a store, take anything he wants, and leave without handing over a single coin. Newton stares at the card, then at the store, then back at the card. This, he whispers, is the greatest invention in human history. 5 minutes later, Newton owns 14 telescopes, 6 golden carriages, a diamond-covered apple peeler, and enough powdered wigs to cover the entire population of France. There is only one small problem. Newton thinks the credit card creates free money. It does not. And in approximately 30 days, a very angry envelope is going to arrive at his house. But before Newton destroys his financial life, we should probably explain what a credit card actually is. Because when used correctly, it can be a useful financial tool. But when used like Newton, it becomes a tiny plastic shovel, perfect for digging an enormous financial hole. Welcome to Newtonomics, where Newton explains modern money, usually by making every possible mistake first.
Newton is walking through the modern world when he sees something unbelievable. A man enters a store. The man selects a basket of apples. He taps a small plastic card against a machine. Beep! The payment is approved. Then the man simply walks away with the apples. Newton freezes. No coins. The cashier shakes her head. No gold? She shakes her head again. No chickens, land deeds, or promises of military support? Sir, he used a credit card. Newton slowly turns toward the man. The man is now holding both the apples and all the money he entered with. Newton's eyes widen. From Newton's perspective, this man has just violated the laws of economics and possibly several laws of physics. Newton rushes to a bank. I would like one of your magical shopping rectangles. The banker explains that a credit card is not free money. Whenever Newton uses the card, the bank or card issuer temporarily lends him money. That money is sent to the store. Newton then owes the money to the card issuer. Newton must repay it later. The banker continues. The card has a credit limit. Newton can spend up to that limit. Every month, he receives a statement showing what he purchased and how much he owes. He can repay the full statement balance, or he can make a smaller minimum payment. But if he carries unpaid debt, interest may be added. Newton nods confidently. He understands absolutely none of this. So I can purchase things today? Yes. And pay later? Yes. And the card itself contains no gold? Correct. Newton looks directly into the camera. We have defeated money. No, Newton. You have discovered borrowing. Humanity discovered it thousands of years ago. We just made it smaller, faster, and more colorful. Newton takes his new credit card to an apple shop. One apple costs $1. Newton places the apple on the counter. The cashier says, that'll be $1. Newton dramatically presents the credit card using both hands, as though he's presenting a sacred scientific artifact to the king. Beep! The payment is approved. Newton looks behind the counter. No money appears. He looks underneath the card machine. Nothing. He leans across the counter and checks the cashier's pockets. Still nothing. But Newton receives the apple. He lifts it toward the sky. This device has created matter from nothing. Not exactly. Behind the scenes, the credit card company pays the merchant. The store receives its money. Newton receives the apple. And Newton now owes the card issuer $1. The debt does not feel real because Newton did not physically hand over any money. And that feeling matters. When Newton pays with 10 gold coins, he watches the coins leave his hand. He sees his wealth disappear. He feels the pain. But when Newton uses a credit card, he hears a cheerful little sound. Beep. New telescope. Beep. Luxury carriage. Beep. Limited edition apple-scented wig powder. The beep feels harmless, but every beep creates a tiny debt apple behind Newton. At first, there is only 1, then 5, then 20. Newton does not notice them. He is too busy shopping. Newton's credit card has a limit of $5,000, but that $5,000 is not Newton's money. It is simply the maximum amount the issuer is currently willing to lend him through the card. Newton does not understand this distinction. He enters a luxury store and sees a magnificent solid gold telescope. Price, $4,000. Newton buys it. Beep. Then he sees a diamond-covered apple peeler. Price, $900. Newton buys that too. Beep. Newton has now used $4,900 of his $5,000 limit. Only $100 remains available. But then Newton spots the most beautiful object he has ever seen. A self-propelled mechanical apple polishing machine. It has 12 brushes, 3 polishing modes, a rotating apple platform, and absolutely no practical purpose. Price, $200. Newton presents his card. Beep. Declined. Newton tries again. Beep. Declined. He rubs the card against his coat. He blows on the gold chip. He holds it toward the sun. Beep. Declined. Newton demands to speak with gravity, but gravity is not responsible. Newton has reached his credit limit. He has almost completely used the amount available to him. Using a large percentage of available credit can also make someone appear riskier to lenders. For example, if Newton has a $5,000 limit and owes $4,500, he is using 90% of his available credit. Someone using only a small percentage may look less dependent on borrowed money. But Newton is not thinking about percentages. He is attempting to fight the card machine with a powdered wig. Just when Newton begins to worry, he receives a notification. Congratulations, you earned rewards points. Newton's face lights up. Rewards? For spending money? This changes everything. Some credit cards offer cashback, travel points, airline miles, or other benefits. A card might return 1 or 2% of eligible purchases as rewards. Spend $100 and receive $1 or $2 of value. This can be useful when the purchase already fits within the budget and the balance is paid responsibly. But Newton focuses only on the reward. He spends $1,000 and receives $10 in points. Newton proudly holds up the $10 reward. I have made a profit. No, you spent $1,000 to receive $10. That is not profit. That is a coupon wearing a fancy suit. Newton then sees another telescope. This telescope offers 5 times the reward points. Newton does not need another telescope. He already owns 14. But this one comes with bonus points. Newton looks directly into the camera. The more I spend, the more I save. That sentence has financially destroyed more people than Newton's apple ever destroyed foreheads. Rewards only help when the purchase already makes sense, and when interest and fees do not exceed the value of the reward. Paying $100 in interest to earn $10 in points is not a financial strategy. It is a donation to the credit card company. 30 days pass. Newton has forgotten nearly every purchase. Then an envelope arrives. Newton opens it. Inside is his credit card statement. Total balance, $4,900. Newton's smile disappears. The statement contains a list of his transactions. 14 telescopes, 6 golden carriages, 72 powdered wigs, 1 apple polishing machine deposit, and something called premium cloud storage. Newton does not own a computer. He has somehow subscribed to cloud storage. The statement also contains a due date, a statement balance, and a minimum payment. The statement balance represents the amount billed during that statement period.
When the account provides a grace period, paying the full statement balance by the due date can generally help the cardholder avoid purchase interest. But Newton ignores the full balance. Instead, he notices the minimum payment, only $150. Newton laughs. They want $4,900, but they will accept $150? Newton immediately pays the minimum. Then he celebrates by buying another carriage. This is where the story becomes dangerous. The minimum payment is generally the smallest amount Newton must pay to keep the account from becoming immediately delinquent. It is not the amount required to quickly eliminate the debt. Paying only the minimum can keep someone in debt much longer, especially if they continue making new purchases. Newton has not solved the problem. He has merely prevented the problem from screaming for another month.
The following month, Newton receives another statement. He expects the balance to be dramatically smaller. After all, he made a payment. Instead, he notices a new charge: interest. Newton points at the statement. What is interest? Interest is the price Newton pays for borrowing money. Credit cards commonly express this borrowing cost using an annual percentage rate, or APR. The exact calculation can depend on the card's terms, but here is the simple version. If Newton carries eligible unpaid debt, the issuer may calculate interest based on his balance and the account agreement. That means Newton's debt can grow while he is trying to repay it. Newton imagines his debt as an apple tree. At first, there is one debt apple. Then the tree produces more apples. Those apples contain seeds. Those seeds become more trees. Soon, Newton is standing in the middle of a terrifying debt orchard. He tries eating one of the debt apples. It tastes like late fees and regret. This is why credit card interest can become so expensive. The borrowing happens instantly. There is no dramatic meeting, no giant bag of money, no banker arriving with a contract and a suspicious mustache. Just beep, debt. Beep, more debt. Beep, a golden apple piece. Newton used once. Newton needs money to pay card number 1, so naturally, he applies for card number 2. The new card arrives. Newton uses card number 2 to cover expenses while making the minimum payment on card number 1. Then card number 2 develops its own balance. Newton applies for card number 3. Soon, Newton is sitting at a table covered in credit cards. He organizes them by size, then by interest rate, then by how judgmental each bank's symbol looks. Newton creates a complicated system. On Monday, card 3 pays for food. On Tuesday, card 2 pays for wig maintenance. On Wednesday, Newton forgets which card is supposed to pay card 1. On Thursday, he applies for card 4. Newton calls this system advanced financial engineering. Everyone else calls it panic. Using new debt to manage existing debt can create a dangerous cycle when there is no realistic repayment plan. Some people use legitimate balance transfer offers or structured consolidation plans to reduce interest, but those tools require understanding the transfer fee, the promotional period, the future APR, and the repayment schedule. Newton understands none of those things. He thinks APR stands for apples per revolution.
Newton attempts to finance a modern house. The lender checks his credit information, then quietly closes the file. Newton is confused. He invented calculus. A unit of force is named after him. He owns multiple telescopes. Surely that should count for something. But the lender is concerned about Newton's ability to repay borrowed money. Credit scoring models may consider several factors: payment history, amounts owed, account age, credit mix, and recent applications for new credit. Different models may calculate scores differently, but the main idea is simple. Lenders want evidence that Newton manages borrowed money responsibly. Has he paid on time? How much of his available credit is he using?
How long has he managed credit? Has he recently applied for many new accounts? Newton's file contains several missed payments, extremely high utilization, multiple new applications, and a note from one bank reading, "Customer attempted to explain debt using laws of motion." Newton is denied. He cannot understand how a tiny piece of plastic has gained so much power over his life. But the card did not create the entire problem by itself. Newton made purchases without tracking them. He borrowed without planning repayment. He focused on rewards instead of costs. And he treated the minimum payment like a victory. The credit card was a tool. Newton used it like a financial flamethrower. Newton's next payment is due on Friday. Unfortunately, Newton believes Friday comes after Sunday. He misses the due date. Depending on the account and how late the payment becomes, a missed payment may lead to a late fee, additional interest consequences, loss of promotional terms, or damage to the cardholder's credit history. Newton receives a late payment warning. He immediately writes a letter. "Dear Bank, the payment did not fall. Therefore, gravity is not responsible. Please contact time itself. Sincerely, Sir Isaac Newton." The bank does not accept this explanation. Payment history is one of the most important parts of managing credit. A calendar reminder may not feel exciting, but neither does explaining to a mortgage lender that Mercury was in retrograde. Automatic payments can help prevent missed due dates. Cardholders can often set automatic payments for at least the minimum amount, or when their finances safely support it, the full statement balance. But automatic payment is not magic. The connected bank account still needs enough money. Otherwise, Newton has simply automated the arrival of chaos. Newton gathers all his purchases in the orchard. The luxury carriages, the golden telescopes, the diamond apple peeler, the premium wig collection. He finally asks a painful question. Did I actually need any of this? The answer is no, except perhaps one telescope, and maybe 2 wigs. A responsible credit card strategy begins before the card is tapped. Can the purchase fit within the budget? Would Newton still buy it if he had to hand over cash immediately? Can he repay the statement balance? Is he buying it because it is useful? Or because the card makes the cost feel distant? Newton looks at the mechanical apple polishing machine. It requires 12 workers, consumes enough electricity to power a village, and somehow makes the apples dirtier. Newton returns everything he can. He cancels unnecessary subscriptions. He stops making new purchases on the cards. Then he creates a repayment plan. He lists every balance, every interest rate, every minimum payment, and every due date. Newton can now choose a structured repayment method. One common strategy is to focus extra payments on the debt with the highest interest rate, while continuing to make the required payments on the others. This is commonly called the debt avalanche. Another strategy focuses on eliminating the smallest balances first, creating psychological momentum. This is commonly called the debt snowball. The mathematically cheaper option can depend on the balances and interest rates. The most useful behavioral strategy is the one a person can consistently follow. Newton invents a third method, the debt apple catapult. It is not approved by financial professionals. Months later, Newton receives another credit card. This time, he understands the rules. He uses it to buy one basket of apples, only apples he had already planned to purchase. He records the transaction in his budget. He keeps his spending comfortably within his limit. When the statement arrives, Newton checks every charge. He notices an unfamiliar subscription, Royal Horse Streaming Plus. Newton owns no horses. Instead of ignoring it, Newton contacts the card issuer and investigates the charge through the proper process. Then, before the due date, Newton pays the full statement balance. No giant revolving debt, no panic, no debt orchard, no banker chasing Newton through London. Newton may also receive a small amount of cash back. But this time, the reward is a bonus, not an excuse to overspend. A credit card can provide convenience. It may offer fraud protections, rewards, and the ability to build positive credit history when handled responsibly. But it can also charge interest, fees, and penalties. The useful habits are surprisingly boring. Spend within a budget, understand the card agreement, check every statement, protect the account information, pay on time, avoid carrying expensive debt when possible, and never buy 72 wigs because the store offers triple points. Newton returns to the store where everything began. On the counter sits the newest luxury invention, the Apple Master 9000. It scans an apple, grades the apple, names the apple, takes a professional photograph of the apple, and posts the apple on social media. Price, $2,000. The salesperson leans toward Newton and whispers, "You'll earn 20,000 bonus points." Old Newton would have purchased it immediately. New Newton pauses. He checks his budget, he checks his current card balance, he asks whether he actually needs the machine. Then Newton looks at the ordinary apple in his hand. He wipes it on his coat. The apple is now clean. Newton walks away. The salesperson is stunned. Newton has finally discovered the most powerful financial tool ever created. Not the credit card, not rewards points, not balance transfers. Self-control. A credit card is not free money. It is not extra income. And it is definitely not a magical rectangle that defeated economics. It is a borrowing tool. When used responsibly, it can be convenient and useful. But when Newton spends without a plan, pays only the minimum, ignores interest, and opens new cards to manage old cards, the debt grows heavier and heavier. Newton discovered gravity when an apple fell on his head. But today, he discovered something even heavier: credit card debt. Newton looks up. A gigantic mountain of unpaid statements, credit cards, and debt apples is hanging directly above him. Newton slowly steps to the side. The mountain falls directly onto the banker. Newton looks into the camera. Gravity. Newton finds the perfect house in America, and then here's the price. No problem, he has a credit card. Yeah, that's not how houses work. Instead, Newton gets introduced to something much scarier: a mortgage. Down payment, interest, credit score, closing costs, and then Newton sees the final detail. 30 years? Next time on Newtonomics, Newton buys a house in America.
Please subscribe.